to Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? Really like that. You really like that? Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in on a Tuesday evening here to Talk That Dog, our hour where we handle the local hour of news here in the Georgia market. What we're known for, right? What people found us for originally. If you haven't already, please go check out our film study on Ole Miss today. We did do a What to Expect episode. Thought it was really, really delightful to break down that Ole Miss offense. And it's something I've always been intrigued by. Obviously, Lane, an offensive mind that everybody's well known for, or everybody's well praised over the years. And he's evolved, right? He's continued to change. It doesn't necessarily look like the offenses that they had during the years of Alabama. Obviously, he has a different skill set and a different players, set and different reins on him at that university. So welcome in. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and rate and review. And we do have a great show planned for you guys tonight. It was a Tuesday. We did have pressers available out there in Athens. We normally do hot off the presser. It's normally fresh right as we walk down in here into the studio. We're a little delayed off the hot off the presser. These takes, if you will, these thoughts, these observations, they've had a minute to simmer since today's presser availability that wrapped up at about 7 o'clock out there in Athens. So we've already had an hour of NBR, obviously reacting to the college football playoff rankings. That was our previous hour here on the network. But I have some thoughts. Went into this presser availability with Kirby Smart today with a couple of questions in mind. One, I wanted to know how they prepared to hit this quarterback. Okay, we've been making jokes about Jackson Dart. I've been making jokes about Jackson Dart being a very sneaky, thick individual. If you watched film study, if you've watched this dude play football, he runs the football unlike any other quarterback. All right, he runs with a level of competitiveness and a level of confidence that is unprivy to most quarterbacks at this position, and plays with a level of toughness that's not necessarily common. Jaden Daniels plays a little bit like this, but Jaden Daniels is way faster, and Jaden Daniels is a lot twitchier and will occasionally run out of bounds. But yes, when he gets hit, he looks like shattered glass. This is not necessarily the case with Jackson Dart. Jackson Dart, again, sneaky thick. But I wanted to know, how are y'all preparing to hit this football player, right? Because when he runs, he doesn't run and scramble like a quarterback. He immediately becomes a running back, but he's not a running back. He's not refereed like a running back. He's not governed like a running back. He is not protected, or lack thereof, like a running back when he is out there scrambling around. He's protected like a quarterback. And they say, Kirby said it very clearly, we're going to hit him. We're going to hit him like a running back. When he declares himself, when he tucks the football, we're going to hit him. We're going to attack him like he is a running back. And that's very, very important for this football team. And particularly the reasons and the ways you go about stopping Jackson Dart as a scrambler. You're going to have to be physical with him. You're going to have to make the hits count because he's going to give them to you. Speaking of give them to you, I wanted to lob up a nice little soft ball to Kirby about the fans and the noise and the sound and how loud and how impactful you guys could be as a fan base on Saturday. And again, we pander to you every single weekend. We try to get you up for these matchups. It's important this week, all right? This is a football team. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. It's a football team that has a lot of window dressing, and it is a very timing-based football team with a lot of jet motions, okay? That's something you can certainly impact on Saturday. We also got player availability today as well, but I want to hit on some of these other notes from Kirby today. Brock's back working hard, back running on dry land. He said Marcus Rosemi-Jack Saint let up a little nugget that we gave you over on patreon.com/Brooks Austin today. Said that he found out Brock Bowers was running 20 miles an hour. Now, I want to do this without throwing stones, but people throw stones at our reporting all the time. You told me that there was a competitor that said last week that if anyone told you Brock Bowers was straight line running, what did he say? That we're, quote, full of what?
BSing, essentially.
Bullshitting.
Mm-hmm.
He said that you're bullshitting if you report that Brock Bowers was straight line running last week.
Lying to you.
Lying to you. Well, do much lying. do much lying. In fact, we don't do any lying. We just do a bunch of reporting over on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. And for some reason, despite the fact that we're like 3.5, 4 years into this business, despite the fact that we've built a pretty substantial log of consistently reporting the right things, sometimes people want to call us bullshitters. So, yeah, and that kind of happens every once in a while. So if you want some of that bullshitting, head over to patreon.com/Brooks Austin because you can get it right up, straight up, very, very early as well. 4 days early on that bull taking a shit over there on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Also thought it was interesting to hear Kirby talk about how Lane taught him things about doing things your own way as a head football coach. That, to me, has stood out. It's been noticeable. Kirby's altered his way of going about. This doesn't feel like Alabama 2.0 anymore. This feels like Georgia 1.0 under Kirby Smart, and it has felt that way, I would say, for about 3 seasons. Basically, since Todd Monken got to the University of Georgia, I felt that this offense and this football team has moved much more in towards the identity of what it's going to look like under Kirby Smart for the remainder of time. Also said that he didn't know about the exact timetable of a Branson Robinson return, but it's likely that he's going to be cleared for at least some type of activity this spring. So that'll be good news. Sounds like Branson will have a full return and be ready to go come next fall. We've asked him every single week about, hey, what ways can Carson Beck improve? And every single week he's noted something about turnover-worthy plays. We've got to be able to not, put the ball at risk, those 1 or 2 times a day, or one of those 1 or 2 times a game. That wasn't his answer today. His answer today was about the subtle things. It was about leadership. Basically saying that he didn't really necessarily know exactly where on the field that he can improve right now. And I would kind of agree with him. I don't know if there's one area right now where I look at Carson Beck's performances and I say that could drastically improve. Do you guys find anything?
I think the only thing I would kind of say is once a game, not once, but a handful of times a game, there's a pass where you go, that was pretty off target. That's the only thing. You have that with every quarterback, but other than that, it's like you said, it's nitpicky. But other than that, I'm good.
Yeah, I don't really have any issues with Carson Becker at this point. And, we kind of talked about how he really hasn't had his bad game yet. And I wanted to make this point yesterday, but I would say that Auburn maybe was his bad game moment. He just happened to bounce back in the second half in a big way and started relying on Brock Bowers because it was a little touch and go in the first half. You miss a deep ball to Oscar Delp. You throw an interception because a defensive back made a great play. All signs are pointing to a bad football game for Carson Beck on the road in that moment, but he decided not to let that happen. So maybe that was his bad moment.
Yep. Also found out some other interesting notes from today's presser availabilities. Not only did Marcus Rosemi-Jacksaint confirm the reports that we gave out last week that were ultimately denied by other people, but Kamari Lassiter also gave us some intel on something that's becoming a much more larger talking point around the beat. It sounds like that people are catching on that, oh, damn, this dude really did change positions midweek. And we kind of talked about it the day of, you know what I mean? We talked about it and tweeted about it live as soon as we saw it happening during the game. But it was very, very interesting to me to hear Kamari Lassiter say that decision he revealed today came from none other than Fran Brown. Fran Brown apparently walked into Glenn Schumann's office and said, I want my number 3 on their number 3. So this is the second time on record that I know of. The first one they revealed, or this one they revealed, right? Kamari told us this. The last one I kind of had to do some digging on. Do you guys remember the Oregon game last year to open the season?
Yep.
Do you remember what they did at corner?
They kept him boundary side, didn't they?
Kept him boundary and field. And let let Keeley play the boundary and let Kamari play the field. And for the first time in a long time, I noticed them flipping. That was Fran Brown's decision. Apparently, Fran had noticed some tendencies from Oregon to really threaten vertically on the short side of the field. They wanted to press into the boundary. So he put his fastest guy into the boundary and rotated that based off the matchup. This being Fran Brown's adjustment as well, saying, hey, I want my best guy in the slot covering their best guy. How can we make this work? Kirby and Glenn go on to make it work for them. I don't know if this happens at other programs as much as it does at Georgia, but they alter themselves far more than any other great football program that I watch. I mean, they are willing to step out of their comfort zone and do things that are outside of the norm for them and be willing to trust coaches like this in this scenario.
And that's why I think that the week-to-week eye test of Georgia almost doesn't apply to them, just because they're going to do different things. It feels like every single week. Georgia one week might say, all right, Carson, let's go rip it 45 times. You're going to go throw for 350-plus yards and however many touchdowns. The next week they might say, Dejon Kendall, this is your game. We're going to give each of you 15 touches, and let's pound the rock a little bit, eat some clock, and just get out of here and grind out a win. And that's why I don't think you can just say, oh, well, last week they did this, or that's what they are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a sign of a great team. They can beat you more ways than one. They can beat you passing the ball, running the ball, stonewalling you on defense. They did that a lot last year in their way to the national championship. I mean, look at the Kentucky game compared to the Ohio State game. You win a shootout versus a stone-throwing competition.
You know who can't win games in a multitude of facets?
I was just going to go back to Ohio State.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm not saying we'll talk about it later.
Hey, there's a football player doing something really, really special this weekend, and he means a lot to this network, and I think that will mean even more as time goes on. But there's a football player making his 40th consecutive start this weekend for the University of Georgia. Do you know his name?
Cedric Van Pran?
Cedric Van Pran Granger will start his 40th game this week for the University of Georgia. I tweeted about it Sunday morning, and I'd be interested to hear the chat's thoughts. I know that this discussion gets very, very cloudy because of how these other two guys have played in the league. But I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a better center at the University of Georgia than Cedric Van Pran. I think he'll go down as the greatest of all time.
The only one that comes to mind initially is David Andrews. But, I mean, even though I would say Ced goes right up against him.
And David and Ben's case are very much so NFL based.
Mm-hmm.
Like, those guys turned out to be borderline Hall of Fame football players in the league, and that's great for them.
Right.
We don't know what Ced's ultimately going to look like in the league. But from a look at their career, there's no resume that's better than Cedric Van Pran Granger's at the center position.
He's got the most rushing yards.
He's got the most rushing yards. He's got the only 2 titles in the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's got the consecutive start streaks. I don't know what Ben and David's look like.
I remember David.
He's one of the
Andrews
most likable players on the roster.
David was
He's
there
been a
for a minute.
consummate leader for this football program for better part of 3.5 years, essentially. No, I haven't had a chance to ask Cedric about it. We didn't get him in immediate availability this week. I'll ask him about it Saturday because I know we'll end up talking to him after the game. But I asked Tate, like, what does it mean? Because Tate's obviously struggled with injury. And Tate's struggled to win out and hold his starting spot. Now he's got it. But, last year against Oregon, it wasn't known. You know what I mean? This guy's going to be a 2-year starter and walk on senior day. We're talking about a dude in Cedric Van Pran Granger who's essentially going to make not essentially, he's going to, barring some type of injury, once he became a starter as a redshirt freshman, going to start every single remaining game, okay, until he is an NFL draft pick, presumably a top 60 pick. What does that require? What does it require to make that many consecutive starts? You start with toughness. That's what you start with. And that's what Tate started with when I asked him about it this weekend or today. And I think the other thing that he talked about that continues to blow my mind is how much of a student of the game that Cedric Van Pran is. Tate said last night they were watching film till 10 o'clock. They were in the film room, watching film until 10 o'clock. And he says every single week it blows his mind the things that Cedric's brain and his eyes pick up on, and his ability to just connote football knowledge. I know I've been gallivanting on about him for a couple of minutes now, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a better center during his 4-year career at the University of Georgia.
I think
it's definitely tough to put up against anyone else. So
I think that's someone in a position specifically that you may kind of, not that Georgia fans have taken Cedric Van Pran for granted, but maybe when he's gone, you kind of notice some things like, whoa, I never saw that happening when 63 was out there snapping the football. Like that, he is a second quarterback to that offense, and he's a leader. I mean, that plays a vital role of offensive line fits and everything and putting you in the right spot. And so I think that's someone that you will, I think, recognize when he is not out on the field next year.
I will tell you this. The 3 years that he's been the starter at center, I haven't noticed an abundant amount of busted plays. And I'm not going to say that was all on Trey Hill prior to him, but there was a lot of times where I looked on tape and I was like, well, shit, clearly the right guard didn't know what he was doing. And clearly the left tackle didn't know who was in protection. Clearly that guy came through as a free hitter. And Cedric's not the only center in this equation that's dealt with experienced quarterback play. You know what I mean? He's also had to deal with a brand new starter. Granted, Carson probably takes care of a lot more than most first-year starters.
Right.
But a lot of your success has been due to the fact that 63 has been a mainstay for you guys for a very, very long time. Hey, welcome into tonight's show. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and rate and review. And it is Tuesday. I haven't heard from Terrence. Don't think we're going to get him today, but that's okay. Make sure you're hitting that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, and rate and review, and all that good stuff. It's been a great week here on the network. It's going to continue to be a great week here on this network. It's a growth period, man. We are continue to grind. Boys, I have a moment, and I want to share it with you, and it's a thought process that we're going to have continuing moving forward. Every time you think we're doing too much, every time you think you're a little bit overwhelmed, understand that we're going to look back on this time period of us doing these shows, and we're going to realize that was our infancy. That's where we started. You know what I mean? Like, this is very, very new to us, and we are very, very new as a collective to the audience, and we've been very well received, and I'm thankful for that, but I also know that we're doing a lot. We are, okay? We're doing a lot. We're working hard, but understand, one day we'll look back on this and we'll be like, damn, we had no idea how big it was going to be. I truly believe that. So just hold true. All right, we got a month left of this season, and then we got to finish through January. All right, and then we can do whatever in February. Maybe we take a show collective group vacation, and by that I mean you guys get to watch the kids while the wife and I get to go off and have some fun. Y'all down?
Some funs with the uncle.
Yeah,
I'm cool
funs
with
with
that.
the unks.
Yeah.
Interesting. Funkle.
Yeah.
You know,
Funkle.
a little fun with the uncle. Hey, y'all want some film observations?
Bring it.
I
Feed
did
me.
do a film study today. You know, I did. If you haven't watched it, you should. Not right now. We got a live show going on. But make sure you're running over there and checking out our what to expect for this Ole Miss football team. What?
Chat's bringing up old wounds for you.
Did I poop my pants?
No.
What are we talking about?
Did you have a story about that a while back?
Did I poop my pants?
No. You looking for a quarter?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've swallowed a quarter, had to search through my own bowels. I've also shit myself as an adult.
It happens.
It happens.
It
I
happens.
mean, I was 17. I wasn't a full
you weren't an
grown
adult yet. You weren't an adult yet.
Yeah, senior year. Yeah, it got me. I was running around the track, thought I could make it. I had to finish a full mile for my conditioning
You
test.
did at school?
Bro, it was rough. I got through lap 3 and I was like, I got this. I can make it through lap 4.
That last lap.
I was hitting the I was hitting the Peter Griffin clinch. Coming around turn 3.
Coach, I think
It was
he's
rough.
cramping. No, Coach, I don't think he's cramping.
I didn't actually shit myself. I relieved myself in the bushes, but
Hey,
don't tell
The
Landmark Christian.
bushes?
Bro, I had to do something. It was either shit in public or shit myself.
I bet those bushes look nice and beautiful now.
You daggum right. Good fertilizer for them. Film observations?
Yeah, please.
You never know. You have no idea where we're going to end up on this show, and I think that's good news.
Clinch game
Clinch game was a week. Ain't no doubt about it. Film observations. Let's get after it. No more poo talk on the show. This defense, let's start with them because it is an offensive-based discussion. Most of the analysis this week will revolve around stopping this Ole Miss offense. It's fun. It's interesting to watch, all that good stuff, but let's talk about the defense. They are very, very zone-based. I watched them for a full game against Auburn. I don't think I saw a single man clip in that entire study that I did right there. Very few flash players on this football team. Okay, kind of just a bunch of standard dudes, roster top to bottom, except for their linebackers. I do like 4, and I do like 11. 4 is a freshman. He plays like a freshman. Okay, there are times where he flashes like the number 1 football player that they've signed under Lane Kiffin, which is indeed the truth right there, right? But there are times in other situations where he very much so looks like a freshman out there playing defense. The tackling and basic alignment is extremely questionable. Extremely questionable. They have improved under Pete Golding. All right, that is true. All right, but they are a B- football team on the defensive side of the football, maybe even a C+, with about C+ talent in the SEC. That's what I would say on that side of the football. And Pete Golding's doing it with a bunch of patchwork assignment on the defensive side of the football. You think USC doesn't do a good enough job stacking their rosters with defensive talent? This football team has 16 transfers, 16 brand new football players on their 2 deep on the defensive side of the football alone. Okay, so out of 22 football players that go on their two deep, 16 of them just got there this year. That's a lot of new pieces and new parts. You're unfortunately catching them towards the end of the season where they've had an opportunity to kind of remove all the bust and all the missed assignments that they have lining up and showing on tape previously in their beginning parts of the season. However, they still do misalign relatively often. And I saw that even dating back to Pete Golden's years at Alabama. There are certain times in run defense where I'm just like, just alignment doesn't make sense, Pete. Like, why are y'all lining up based off that? There was an explosive against Auburn right before the half that was based off that we showed you in film study. Already talked about number 4 on the defensive side of the football. Let's flip over to the offensive side of the football, what the film says about them. Starts and ends with Ole Miss, with starting the run. It's extremely complex. They're a wide zone football team. They run H insert like Tennessee. They run toss crack like Georgia. They run power like Kentucky does, but except for running the backside guard, they pull backside tackles. Then on top of all of that they do with their running back, who, by the way, is really, really good, and they have 2 of them, on top of all of that, you have to take into account all the jet sweeps that they do and all the quarterback run game that they do, which is really, really hard to stop. All right, so they do all of this stuff. That's 7 or 8 things that we're talking about just before we get into the fact that, oh, by the way, everything is an RPO, and everything has an ability for the quarterback to run off the top of that. Number 4, Quinshon Judkins is special. He is electric. You wish you would have caught him earlier in the year when he was dealing with an abdomen injury. He's fully healthy, man, and he's ready to go. He will have gashers on Saturday. It's about getting him on the ground. Number 2, Jackson Dart, he's a load. He is a big dude, 6'3", 220 pounds. We've been talking about it. You have to rush this dude with integrity. All right, Auburn did a terrible job the first 2 drives in that football game that we showed you on tape of just getting way too far upfield, rushing on different levels. You got to rush this guy on the same level. You got to mush rush him. And when you get an opportunity, you have to hit this guy. All right, you got to make your hits count on this dude. You got to absolutely blow him up. I don't think this offensive line can hold up athletically. I envision number 11, Jalen Walker, number 35, Damon Wilson, and number 13, Michael Williams, giving this offensive line absolute fits from an athletic standpoint. The last unathletic offensive unit that I've seen look like this was TCU in the national championship game. Glenn Schumann had an absolute field day, twisting, stunting, slanting, doing all kinds of different stuff, making that offensive line play athletic. I wrote it and I talked about it on the film study. They got a bunch of big uglies. They do not have a bunch of big sexies. All right, there is a big difference in this SEC conference. All right, everybody who can't get the big sexies normally plays small. Ole Miss has not done that. They've just recruited big uglies. They got a bunch of 6'5", 360 fat boys up there that can move people every once in a while, but they are not athletically gifted up there on the front end. Trey Harris is a problem, the wide receiver, okay? But he's only a problem 5 or 6 times a game unless you make that something that you can't defend. If you watch them, he is their vertical presence in the passing game, but he is not their go-to guy. He is not somebody that is their security blanket. He is not their safety blanket. He is their firecracker, all right? He is not their gasoline. He is not what the engine runs on. Their engine runs on the running game. But when they take shots to Trey Harris, you better be able to stop him because he is in the slot and he is a problem. He is a mismatch, and he showed that even back during his days as a mid-major opponent before transferring to Ole Miss. And that's a great overview, and that's the overview that I gave you on film. And as I was watching them, and I watched them against Auburn because it was their last away game, all right, and their last important away game in a serious environment. I'm not looking at you, Vanderbilt. It was their last real away game, and it's a great overview that I just gave you. But my primary observation while watching them on film was the fact that they are way, way, way too complicated to have success on the road. All right, that was what I thought. Way too dependent on motion, way too dependent on the window dressing pre-snap, way too dependent on check with me's. And this is how my process works, guys. I sit down, I don't check box scores, I don't look at stats, I don't look at efficiency numbers, I don't do the nerdy shit. I sit down, I watch the film, okay? And I sit there and I stare and I write my notes, I watch a couple games, and I come away with my observations. And then at that point, all right, I come away with my observation, and I go to check the stats after that to see if my observations were either confirmed or they were denied. If they're denied, I got to go back and find out why. I got to go find out whether or not my observation was the outlier or whether or not the stats were the outlier. But something is wrong. But I don't do it any other way. I do it observations off film first. Then what do the stats tell me? I'm going to tell you right now, observations off film tell me that football team is way too dependent on the complicated. And when you go on the road, you have to simplify the game plan. You got to line up sometimes and be able to beat opponents. So, Jonathan, what do the stats tell me about this football team as a road football team? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the film tells me there's no way this is sustainable to believe that they can do this on the road as effectively as they do at home when the environment is nice and calm. What say the stats?
The stats absolutely confirm that. They are about 20 points fewer.
20?
A 20-point difference on the road versus home games. They're averaging 45.7 points per game at home this season. They're averaging just 25 points on the road this season. Another number that has a huge difference, nearly 200-yard difference in total yards of offense this season versus home games and away games. 536.8 at home, 363 on the dot on the road this season.
And I know what a lot of people will say, well, but Brooks, they play all of the garbage teams at home. They play all of their non-conference, non-Power 5 teams at home. Yeah, you'd be correct, except they played Tulane on the road this year. And Tulane was one of these defenses that gave them problems. This is an offense, guys, that gets bothered by road environments. Granted, they play in some extremely hostile ones, but we're talking about 20 points per game. 20 points per game worse on the road. And the big one you talked about, 200 yards per game. Dude, that's 2 football lengths of yardage that they are worse on the road. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent over the last 2 years as well. There's about a 12-point difference in points per game on home versus road games. So that's 13 home games versus 9 road games over the last 2 years. Plus, they're averaging more penalties per game on the road this year as well versus home games.
Just a singular penalty, I think, is what
it
you
is.
texted
But
the
they're
chat.
one of the most penalized teams in the country in general, anyways.
And I would imagine my personal film observations, and you're not going to be able to check this because we can't figure out which penalties are which unless we're digging game logs, and I'm not going to make you do that. This is a really, really false start heavy football team. Okay, they're doing a lot of check with me's, a lot of claps, a lot of pre-snap motions, a lot of, hey, let's show this motion, let's get set, let's check with the line of or check with the sideline, let's get everything recalled. Now let's clap again. And with a lot of new transfers in there, all right, you're going to experience false starts. You're going to experience problems. Again, we joke about it every week. I tell you, you got to show up. You got to be loud. This week is for real. This week you got to show up, and you can really impact the football game. You got something?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's kind of what Georgia crowds have had to do all season. It's been you have to come in and disrupt these offenses. You did last year against Tennessee, so you kind of have to live up to that hype of you made last year of hindering this opponent's offense.
Again, 20 points per game worse over the last 2 seasons. 20 and 14 in the middle is 17 points. They're 17 points worse on the road over a 2 full season span of data on this Ole Miss offense. That's staggering. Also, by the way, Jackson Dart, 4 interceptions on their year. You guessed it, all 4 on the road. I'm just telling you, man, I haven't looked at film and come away and done that and had a boom. Yep, you're 100% right, like we have right there in a minute.
Yeah, as soon as I think I was kind of already doing this a little bit, but then when you texted me specifically about it and was like, this is what I'm seeing, what are you seeing? So then I was like, I got to break it down fully from road and away. And when I saw those numbers, I mean, I immediately texted you like, yeah, it's a massive difference.
I can't believe no one else has caught on to this.
No one's in the weeds.
Yeah, ain't nobody grinding that tape. I'm going to tell you that right now. Not like we do it. Maybe some highlight clips every once in a while. You can't find these tendencies unless you're fully going like play by play, quarter to quarter. I think some people get frustrated with the way that we do film. I think some people watch us and they're like 45 minutes. Why'd you show me these? It all builds, man. Game plans build. By the way, it's like we go through the game chart and the momentum and the swings of the game change how we go about playing the football game. By the way, something that I left out of the film observations that you need to be wary of. From the moment Ole Miss crosses their own 40-yard line, they're in 4-down territory. They will not be punting. They will not be kicking field goals. They will be going for it on 4th down. Anything north of 4th and 3, they're going for it right now. So on 3rd and 7, understand everything is at play. It's 2nd and 7. I thought Ole Miss or Auburn did a terrible job to start that football game of not realizing who they were playing. Understand who you're playing. You're playing a fourth down football team in Ole Miss.
Yeah, get your popcorn ready. That's it, dude. It's a 4-down territory from there. Lane Kiffin plays NCAA 14.
They have the 19th most attempts on 4th down this season. They're converting 70% of the time.
Who's number 1?
You'd never guess it. It's South Florida.
They bush pushing?
Baylor is the first Power 5 football team on the list.
They're playing from behind a lot.
Yeah.
That checks out.
But it's not a huge, like,
It should be a bunch of bad teams, right? You would imagine?
It's Baylor, Boston College, Texas Tech, Temple, Western Michigan.
Yeah, teams that are trailing
Arizona
all the time.
State.
Yeah, it should be bad teams that are leading the nation in that category. It should not be good ones.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Mississippi, Ole Miss is the only good team in the top 20.
Somebody said, Brooks, come get your great food at 300 South Hull Street Saturday at our tailgate. That's our boy Brian Wilkerson in the chat. I got Hull Street parking deck, so might have to holler at that. I camp out at the corner of Lumpkin and Ray. And if you know about that, you know about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most famous tailgate spot in Athens, I believe, unless Jamie Goodman's doing something. And at that point, we got to show love to my boy. Any thoughts on the Ole Miss matchup? I know you guys aren't the grinders of the tape, but y'all watched film study. What'd you take away?
Like you said, they are a mistake-prone team on defense more so. On offense, they can be hindered through crowd noise and such as that. Obviously, you just went under the soliloquy about how they don't perform as well on the road, but they're also susceptible to big plays on defense is what I took away from it. And I think that's what you're going to have to take advantage of if you're Georgia.
And I know that, I did the same thing initially when I was looking at the stats this week and I was putting together the thread and whatnot of like, wow, this Ole Miss defense really isn't that bad, or at least doesn't seem like it's as bad as it was in years past. But then I go and watch the film study, and as soon as you mention that this is a defense that likes to run zone a lot, I was like, they're cooked. They are cooked. Carson Beck and that offense is going to cook them up to pieces, and then you pile that on with they don't tackle well and they have some misalignments. I was like, that defense is cooked.
Cooked if they can't protect, or if they can protect.
Yeah.
If Georgia can protect on Saturday, this offense destroys zone coverage. It absolutely destroys zone coverage. Now, I went back and rewatched last night's show, and I got to give Murray some credit because he pushed back on something. By the way, chat, take it easy on the love for Aaron Murray. He gets enough of it, okay? You know what I mean? You ain't got to come to his defense. You ain't got to come to his aid. He's plenty loved in this network, okay? Good Lord. Can't believe that.
There you go again.
There I go again. Also, it's a joke.
Just being mean to Murray, man.
As if Murray doesn't get enough love. I mean, dear Lord. What were we talking about?
You were talking about Aaron Murray pushed back on something that
I went back and watched him last night and rewatched the show. And we made a point. We got to the discussion about Dalen Everett. And I talked about how he keeps getting beat in zone coverage, and it's not necessarily his fault. And the first thing he said was, well, why are they playing zone? They're playing zone because they don't think he can play man coverage. And it's the same reason Ole Miss is out here playing zone coverage, right? It's the same reason they don't look like a carbon copy to Georgia defensively, right? It's the same reason they don't look like a carbon copy defensively to what Pete Golden was doing at Alabama. They don't have the dudes on that side of the football, and they're having to constantly bring in new bodies. And one thing I do appreciate about the way that they've kind of revamped things defensively, I don't know if they have as many busts. Can you check their defensive explosive rate? I would imagine they're doing slightly better. Take out the LSU game, but they're doing a little bit better of a job of getting guys on the ground and not giving up so many wide open explosives.
So for 20-plus yard plays allowed, they're 56 in the country. They've allowed 38 of them.
So middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Middle of the pack. Man, that's like top third, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So not too terrible with, again, not the best resources on the defensive side of the football. They're big. They're Mississippi big. I got some history with the Mississippi defensive linemen. They all look like that, by the way. They're all 6'5", 315 pounds, and got a stench to them. Got a must to them.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mississippi defensive linemen. They're mean. They're angry. They're mad at the world. They're trying to get out. That's all. They're just trying to get out of Mississippi. And that is kind of the culture that Lane Kiffin's kind of taken on. I think that's been also the very interesting thing about his career is that he's always been very honest with you, but now with the NIL culture, he can be like very, very up forth and forthcoming about this. The fact that he knows he's not going to land high school football recruits because they know that they want the glitz, they want the glamour. They don't want to be in Oxford, Mississippi. Okay, he doesn't want to be in Oxford, Mississippi, I don't believe. But he's made his way there. He's made his roots there. And by God, he's an 8-1 football team, and he's a top 10 program. And he beat LSU at home, and that was the key. That was the last infinity stone for this football team. And winning games like he did a couple weeks ago against Auburn.
Yep.
That's a game years past that he loses. He had a damn field goal snapper drop the ball and just immediately turn it into a fire drill and start running around like a chicken with his head cut off, and then just threw a ball up in the air, and Auburn picks the ball off. He had that happen. He had a random-ass fumble. 2 random interceptions from Jackson Dart that made no sense, and he came out with a victory. Like, Lane Kiffin's coaching some football this year, guys.
That also tells me, man, Auburn has been so close this year a couple of times. They have been so close to doing
Hugh
it.
Freeze coaching some football.
Yeah.
I think it's good. Would you agree with me that the SEC at this point right now has better coaching than probably in I would say the last 5 or 6 years?
Oh, 5 or 6 years for sure.
Yes.
5 or 6 years.
I don't know when it's
absolutely.
been this good.
My initial reaction is
Who's terrible? Shane Beamer not looking great right now.
Vanderbilt.
Clark-Lee going to get
Mississippi
fired,
State's-
but
It's
it is
Vanderbilt.
What it is.
You always
Mississippi
know
State,
that.
I don't think you can really say they're terrible because of the situation.
And
they're
that
given.
defense is nuts.
Yeah.
They show up every single year, every single week and play.
Yeah. I think other than like the 2013 season, this is probably like the most stacked SEC coaching.
By God, you give this conference some quarterback play, and they're going to be hell on water or hell on wheels.
Yeah, that's what they had in 2013.
Yeah, no doubt. What have we learned about life without Brock Bowers before we get into Ole Miss by the numbers?
You know that this offense is sustainable regardless of who is out there, regardless of the personnel. You don't have to just lean on one person to do anything and everything for you. Like this
The
entire
system still stresses.
absolutely, and you know that it's just not one person allowing everything else to open up. Mike Bobo is out here cooking this and helping out this offense. Carson Beck is playing phenomenal. I mean, you've learned that this offense can keep rolling.
Yeah, I said that the offense wasn't successful just because of Brock. I mean, there was kind of a consensus around the world that, you take Brock Bowers out of the equation. Now Georgia's offense is going to struggle greatly. Well, they came and put 43 up against Florida the first week without him. So I think that shows that you don't really need Brock Bowers to have a successful offense.
Yeah, I got a couple of notes here. Defensively, teams are certainly taking more chances against you right now. You're seeing a little bit more blitz, seeing a little bit more man coverage. You're seeing defenses essentially take a little bit more risk. They're not as worried about you, but they're still giving it up, right? You're still scoring and moving the football pretty effectively. He's a freshman, and he's playing like a freshman, and it's okay. But Lawson Lucky is not quite ready, and that's all right. We can all say that, all right? And Kirby knew this, by the way. He was asked early before Brock Bowers got hurt, why isn't Lawson Lucky playing? And the first thing Kirby Smart said was, well, how many freshmen are playing? It's hard to play as a freshman. It's really, really hard to play as a freshman, and he's not quite ready physically. I talked about it on film study, and I'll say it here again. Just play a lot faster. Okay, and it will solve a little bit more problems. You might not be going to the right place, but once you get somewhere, you won't land as softly because right now the indecisiveness is causing you to catch things, Lawson, and we can't catch things in this conference. If we're catching things, we're going to end up on our head, and we've ended up on our head a couple of times the last couple of weeks. Y'all talked about the system still stressing teams. It certainly does. I kind of knew it was going to happen. It's good to know now for a fact that we know it. Carson has remained calm without a security blanket. That's really hard to do, right? It's really hard to remain calm knowing that you don't have a constant. Knowing that we have a constant makes everything a lot easier as a quarterback. When we don't have that, it's hard to absolutely 100% remain calm. You guys asked it in the show notes. We'll talk about it right now. Will this be the biggest home game in the Kirby Smart regime? Why not?
I think there's two candidates, obviously. The 2019 home game against Notre Dame. You got to debut the lights, the LED lights, the red lights. You got to light up
Bama, you thieves.
You got to light up Sanford for the first time, so that made all of that great. Last year, you had the number 1 versus number 1 game against Tennessee. That game was absolutely electric. But this one, I think, is unique in its own right as well of why this could be the biggest home game in Kirby Smart's tenure. What do you think, Christian?
What makes it unique?
I think it's unique in the sense of you haven't beaten Ole Miss, so there's that as of Kirby Smart. And two, I think that, we kind of talked about it in the NBR hour of like we really don't know who the number one team is. We can't affirmably say that this is the best team in the country. I think Georgia has an opportunity to not only prove how great of a home environment that they do have, but they have an opportunity to go out here and beat a 9th ranked Ole Miss team and finally like prove themselves like, hey, we are the number one team in the country.
I think this could be the best environment of a Georgia game. You've got a top 10 team coming into town. It's a night
Tickets
game.
are bonkers.
Yes.
Possibly black jerseys, probably not, but I still think that 2022 Tennessee game was the biggest. I think we've kind of forget how much hype Tennessee got coming into that game. They were saying far and away that Tennessee's a lock for the playoff. They're 2019 LSU. They are unstoppable. This offense is unstoppable. Josh Heupel has changed the game of college football, and the stakes were higher as well. If you lost that game to Tennessee, you were pretty much out of the East. You were on the outside looking in. So the stakes were higher in that, and back then there wasn't a guarantee that you were a playoff spot if you lose as well. So, I mean, it's also the number one team came to town. So I think Tennessee was still the bigger home game just because you had more to lose in that game. But you could very well make this the most raucous environment in Sanford.
I believe I remember last year writing an article about how the Tennessee tickets were selling no cheaper than $330 per seat in the nosebleeds.
Yep.
I just looked it up. What do you think the cheapest ticket in the building Saturday is right now on SeatGeek?
$275.
I was going to say 250, 275.
It's $199.
Yeah, makes sense.
And you can sit in section 336. It's actually not a terrible seat based off what SeatGeek's little photos got. It basically looks like right by the flute or the horn. Is that a French horn? What do they play right there when they do that?
French horn?
What do they do there?
It's
with
a trumpet, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a trumpet.
French horn?
I mean, dude, again,
The flute?
How lame would that be?
What does a French horn look like?
What
What does a French horn look like?
Hold on. Two things going on right here. A, not a band geek. B, not a Georgia historian. Okay, so give me a goddamn break. I don't wear the brands like you guys do, okay? I'm just a guy who got hired here to talk football, and I think I do it okay. What I don't do is talk about the flautist on top of the stadium doing the whatever the little tune is. I'm sure you know it by heart.
French horn.
French horn.
French horn.
Who we
really.
Frenching?
Anyways, I think you are right. I think that Tennessee game is going to be so hard to top just because, like I said, it was 1 versus 1. You had AP number 1 versus college football playoff number 1. But I think this just kind of adds a different environment because you get the best of both worlds of what Notre Dame in 2019 was and what Tennessee was last year. There are playoff implications in this football game. It is at night, 7 p.m. kickoff. It is going to be dark when this game kicks off. It's not even one of those games where it's like, okay, there's going to be some sunshine early in the game, but then it's going to get dark. Like, no, it is going to be pitch black when this game kicks off. I think there's just a lot of luster and a lot of I think there's just a variety of things that make this football game great, but Tennessee is going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, I said no. They literally played 1 versus 2 last year at home. Mm-hmm. First time and only time in the history of Sanford Stadium that they did so.
It was 1 versus 3, I believe. Or was it 1 versus 2?
There's 1 versus 1 if you go AP versus
That's what I'm saying. It was 1 versus 1. That's how they labeled it.
Yeah, so no. I'm going to go no, but it's a close second.
For sure.
I think if you pinned this one up against Notre Dame in 2019, this would be what it is.
If that wasn't 2 national brands, that game would have been.
That game sucked.
If it wasn't for the lights and it wasn't for like these two teams, like we never see them play.
And DeAndre Swift jumping over.
And I was I was there. That's
those 2 things.
Yep, that's the only play that I really remember.
That's it.
And the Lawrence Cager catch down in the corner of the end
Devon
zone.
Wilson interception was the one I
And
remember.
Ian Book running like a chicken with his head cut off for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
That's about it.
That was it.
That's about
Snoozer
it.
of a game.
Huh?
Snoozer of a game.
Very much
Like
so.
looking back
But
at
the
it.
environment was lit as shit.
Oh, yeah, the environment was great.
But literally, the game was such a snoozer. I think we remember the DeAndre Swift moment because of the crowd pop.
Yes.
That was the loudest pop of the night.
The touchdowns and the interceptions and everything.
Yeah, it was the loud. That's how boring of a football game that was. I doubt that's the case this weekend.
Yeah, no.
I think we're going to get some fireworks.
Yeah. I was still in high school for that game.
Were you?
Yeah.
As a youngster.
I was freezing my butt off in the box. Wasn't that a cold game? No.
No,
That was
early in the year.
That was like a week 3 game.
Which one did I freeze? I froze that year.
Kentucky?
No, that was
it was cold and rainy.
A&M probably.
A&M was rainy and cold too.
Yeah, maybe it was A&M.
I was at that game
Some
too.
real-
They do have heaters underneath the press box seats up in the box. It's kind of nice. Even though this is the final game in the press box, they're going to move it up to level 5 in the corner. So you really ain't going to be able to see shit up in that press box. By the way, here we go right here. Frick, when did I say it? I said it November 7th, 2023. Oh, man, I can't wait for my colleagues to bitch, moan, and complain the first time they have to sit in that new press box. It's going to happen. I promise you. There's going to be – someone's going to tweet out a photo of what a tremendous view, sarcastically, from the new press box. You watch. It happens every single time. As if you should be upset about being able to do what we do. But nonetheless, I continue on. How does UGA survive the next 2 weeks? Is that where we want to go next? Or do we want to talk? Oh, let's talk about Ole Miss by the numbers. We only got about 13 minutes left. Ole Miss by the numbers. What do you got for me, Jay Will?
I got a bunch of numbers. Is there anything in specific that you guys want to know?
I want to know how Georgia's defense stacks up versus Ole Miss's offense. That's what I want to know.
Okay.
I think that's what this game boils down to.
All right. Well, if there is one area of this football game where Georgia's defense can find success against Ole Miss's offense, is going to be on third down, and you have to get them to third down, and I'll tell you how you do it. First off, Ole Miss's offense, like you've kind of mentioned, Brooks, is they are not fantastic, and there's a reason for that. They're 78th in tackles for loss allowed this year. They're also in the bottom tier for sacks allowed this season. And then also on third down, if you can get them to third down, they're only converting, let's see, I just had it a second ago. Oh, they're only converting 36.3% of the time. That's also with Georgia's defense being third in the country for opponent conversion rate on third down. They're allowing just under 30% of the time. So that's how you have to. That's a way you can find success against this Ole Miss offense. Get them to third down, and then also get them to obvious passing downs on third down as well, because Jackson Dart's only completing 51% of his passes on third down.
So we like Georgia on third down.
Very much so.
So we like Georgia on third down. We'll give them a check on third down. What else we got? How are they running the football versus Georgia's ability to stop the run? Who does the rushing matchup favor in this football game?
I can give you an interesting tidbit on Ole Miss's run defenses that they have played.
Okay.
This is the list of teams that they have played so far. Their rushing defense ranked today. Tulane is 5th. Georgia Tech is 132nd. Alabama is 32nd. LSU is 104th. Arkansas is 45th. Auburn is 83rd. Vanderbilt is 112th. Texas A&M is 15th. So Georgia will be the third best rush defense that they will play this season. The Rebels are averaging 181 rushing yards per game, 4.6 yards per carry.
So they ain't played nobody, Paul.
Not a good rushing defense.
They ain't played nobody, Paul. We'll give a check on a double column over here for UJ. Now, on these edits, we see a lot of this, who's got the offensive line advantage? Who's got the defensive line advantage? I think that is some absolute fugazi shit, because Georgia's offensive line ain't playing Ole Miss's offensive line. So here's how we're going to do this. Georgia's defensive line versus Ole Miss's offensive line. Who do you favor?
Georgia's defensive line.
All right, so let's go Georgia's D-line or we'll just give them a D-line with a check. All right, Georgia's offensive line versus Ole Miss's defensive line. Who do you got?
I don't know. Ole Miss is 7th in the country for sacks.
And Georgia's top 10 in sacks allowed.
Yeah.
Let's give it a push. All right, on O-line, D-line here, okay? Let's give it a straight push, okay? HDMI core fucking with us. All right.
Oh.
Dang. That's the first one all week.
You were good about it this
That was
week.
the first one all week.
Man.
HDMI core got me. All right. Georgia's running backs versus Ole Miss's run defense and linebacker. Here's what I'm going to say. I like Georgia's matchup here because Ole Miss has inexperienced and young linebacker play. Everybody agree?
I would agree with that.
All right, so we're going to go Georgia's running game and running back. We're going to go RGRB.
I think we already know it.
Georgia
They're allowing 137 rushing yards per game right now.
And very up and down on that one, too. Don't they have game logs where they give up 92 yards, 72 yards, and then the rest of them are like north of 160?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to give the advantage there to Georgia. All right, Georgia's passing game versus Ole Miss's pass defense.
Georgia's passing game.
All right, we're going to go Georgia's passing game, UGA passing game. We're going to give them a check. All right, what other matchups do we have in this football game?
Ole Miss's running backs.
Huh?
Ole Miss running backs versus Georgia.
Ole Miss
defense.
running backs versus Georgia's linebackers. We're going to give Ole Miss the nod
Yeah,
there.
for sure.
Ole Miss versus Georgia's linebackers.
Especially with
versus
Pop out.
Linebackers, especially with Pop out. We'll put Pop in parentheses with a line through his name right there. All right, what else we got in terms of matchups? We'll give Ole Miss a check there. So we got so far, ain't played nobody, Paul. That kind of helps out Ole Miss too because Georgia ain't played nobody, right, Paul? Except for Missouri and Kentucky. We have a push on their defensive line versus Georgia's offensive line, okay? And we have Ole Miss favored in the running backs versus the linebacker discussion. General linebacker manipulation, we favor Ole Miss. What else we got?
You were saying something before he did that about Jackson Dart.
No,
Just the passing attack in general. How do we like Trey Harris?
You were about
and
to.
the,
I
and
think
the
you were.
weapons,
I
right?
think you were about.
Let's
to,
go that discussion. Ole Miss's weapons versus Georgia's ability to control those weapons. What do y'all like?
I like Georgia's defense in that.
You like
position.
Malachi
Yeah.
Starks, Javon Bullard,
give me
Kamar
them.
Lassiter versus Trey Harris and their litany of weapons.
especially with the crowd.
So we're
behind
going to go UGA DBs, okay? UGA DBs, okay? Greater than, okay? Ole Miss wide receivers, okay?
Special teams next.
Special teams, F them,
That's what I thought.
okay? Special teams.
I
F
think
'em.
you were about to mention something about Jackson Dart's ability to run. I thought that's what you were about to say.
No, I was talking about the running back with.
A general quarterback run game will always favor the
Yeah.
opposition against Georgia.
For
okay?
sure.
So we'll put that in the plus category. Okay? So, all in all, who do we favor? Oh, by the way, shit on the road.
Yeah.
Shit on road. They be doing a lot of shit on the road. All right?
That's what you did when you were running the
Hey, full circle. Love it. So who do we favor? We favor this one?
Ole Miss
Favor
or
this
Georgia.
category?
Georgia.
Favor this category. By
Yeah,
how much?
Georgia.
I like it big, by the way.
Do you?
Not real big. I like it controlled.
I think it's-
controlled football game for Georgia. Here.
I think this is either a game where Georgia goes tit for tat with Ole Miss and pulls away in the end and wins like a 35-27 type game,
Murray style.
or you just get on top of them early, you let the crowd do your work, and then Ole Miss kind of just falters and you win big. So it's A or B, but I think there is a path to where Georgia wins this game by a lot.
I want to go with the analysis of Georgia goes big. Like I was thinking initially 10 points, maybe even increase that to 14 points because we do this so much with Ole Miss. Every time they play Alabama, we want to say that this is the year that Lane gets them. And Georgia and Alabama, while they do have their differences right now, I mean, they're essentially kind of the same in the sense of this is a top-end powerhouse football team that everybody's waiting to lose. And Ole Miss is typically the team that everybody wants to pick for it to happen, and it typically does not. And it's been ugly against Alabama the past few years for Ole Miss. They lost to them by 14 points this year. I had another stat that if you guys want to say something that I thought was interesting too.
No, let's hear the stat.
So not a single team has had more than 370 yards of total offense against Georgia this season. In games where Ole Miss was held to under 400 yards of total offense this year, they beat Tulane by 17, but that game was close down to the wire.
It was.
They lost to Alabama by 14, and they beat Arkansas by 7 points.
I like all of the stats in this football game, leaning towards Georgia.
Yeah.
The difference, the home road splits are staggering, man.
Yeah.
Again, if you haven't heard this, if you haven't listened to the very beginning of this show or the middle portion of the show, I believe it was, Ole Miss currently over the last 2 football seasons, okay, so we're talking about a sample size of 16 road games, all right, over the last 2 football seasons, they are averaging 17 points per game less. This season, they're averaging 200 yards per game less on the road than they are at home. All 4 interceptions for Jackson Dart this year on the road. This is a staggeringly different football team on the road than they are at home.
Yep.
No, not a doubt about it. How does UJ survive the next 2 weeks? I got 3 ways, okay? Number 1, you have to stop the explosives. The next 2 football teams, next 3 really, Georgia Tech's an explosive football team too. Next 3 football teams are explosive offenses. They are not grinded out, efficient offenses. They are offenses that are predicated off of the chunk play. You're going to have to limit that. Keep number 15 upright, all right? Over the next 3 weeks, if you keep Carson Beck off of the ground, he's going to make the right decisions. Your offense will remain efficient. If you can't keep him off the ground, you're going to fail to convert the sticks more often than you believe you will be able to. Number 3, it's an important one. It's a very vital one, and I can guarantee you right now somebody's in the chat representing this one. C.J. Allen has to play well over the next 3 weeks. I'm not saying great, okay? He doesn't have to play great. He has to play well. He has to play good enough, all right? I don't expect him to play insane. I just need him to play well if Georgia's going to remain undefeated.
Based on the two opponents that you have up next, you definitely got to be good about the run. You got to maintain the run. You got to contain the run. You don't have to completely stop it, but you can't let them rip off because Tennessee and Ole Miss, both teams, while they do have explosives and they are good offenses, or Tennessee's kind of forming into a better offense down the stretch of the season, they want to run the football and they want to establish a run. You got to contain the run. Offense has got to keep rolling without Brock Bowers. Got to see more offensive weapons. I'd like to see someone else not named Lyle McConkey start to kind of get themselves into the conversation. Not that the other wide receivers haven't been playing well. We've kind of seen some road jack action a little bit. Robert Thomas had a big catch. I need to see more of that in these next couple of football games. And defensively, yeah, keep limiting the explosives like you mentioned. I like that one a lot, especially knowing who you got up next.
So you got to create chaos for opposing teams' QBs. These next two guys coming up will make mistakes if you put them in situations to do so. I think you have to create chaos for them, especially when you go into Tennessee because you'll be on the road there. You got to take advantage of any mistakes you can make from the opposition. Other one I have is be more consistent in the red zone. Mm-hmm. I felt like even against Missouri last week.
Both sides, really.
Yeah, I felt like even against Missouri. Well, they played well in the red zone against Missouri, but more offensively than anything. You got to start scoring touchdowns and stop settling for field goals, which kind of segues into my last one. You're going to love this. You have to remain reliable on special teams. You can't be muffing opening kickoffs. You can't muff punts. You got to make your layups on the kicking game. Things like that are super important. I know you don't think that's a big deal. Special teams is kind of a one that's not huge, but they're huge.
No, you just highlighted special teams don't need to suck, which I'm in agreement with.
Yeah.
Special teams don't need to be muffing punts. Special teams don't need to be getting punts blocked. Special teams don't need to be effing up.
I think you also need to.
I think 14, by the way. 14.
Not bad.
14.
I think you also need to be really good at flipping the field when you do punt.
Bro, someone said I ought to give up $20 a cuss word.
Dang.
I'm like, what do y'all think
Can we get half of that?
No, it's to charity. You get none of that.
Bro, charities for sure.
Charity's your stripper name.
Side note on the red zone conversation about Georgia's offense, they have the most red zone attempts in the entire country. They have 51 right now. So while, yes, I agree, they do need to be more consistent in the red zone, it also is just like, dude, they're getting there more than anybody else in the entire country. So it may just feel like that they're being inconsistent because they're doing something that nobody else in the country is.
I think I agree with that, but I think when you walk away and you go, Peyton Woodring had to kick 3 field goals in that Missouri game, you go, I mean, imagine if one of those is a touchdown. You're looking at 34-20.
One of them should have been.
Yeah,
that's what the penalty was called.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think you're looking at where it's like, I don't think you want to put as good as he's been lately. You don't want to put the quality of your drive or the success of your drive on a freshman kicker. We could much rather punch it in.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree.
You want to play some trivia right quick?
Oh, I like it. Let's do it.
Georgia has X amount of defense and special team scores under Kirby Smart.
Oh, man.
Does this count block punts?
Correct.
11.
No, defensive and special teams. All right, let me do thoughts real quick. There's
no way.
There's one against Missouri in 2018.
I'm talking about total, dude.
I know.
If you're doing it that way, there's no way you're getting to this number.
You know,
it's really high.
I'm way too low now
it's
that I
high.
think about
Defensive
it.
and special teams
Defense and special teams.
Defensive too? Ah, shit.
Defense
I'm
and
24.
Special teams.
All right,
That's
so
a good guess.
off the top of my head, I can think of 4 special teams. I'm going to go 16.
It's almost double that. It's 30.
Holy cow.
30,
Really?
30 or 30 plays, 30 scores on defense
So
and special
210
teams.
points responsible. All right, I guess there's safeties too and whatnot, like in block punts, but
Absolutely. Do y'all know the 4? I got 4 names here on the active roster that have scores on special teams and defense.
so Jonel Aguero.
That is 1.
Jonel Aguero has, yeah.
Block
'cause
punt
the
for a
block punt
safety.
for
He
the
gets
safety.
Jonel
points.
Aguero, Makai Muse.
That is 2.
Who's the third one?
Dan Jackson.
Nope.
He blocked the punt against Arkansas. He didn't
did.
recover
He
it.
didn't get
Zamir
the
White
recovery.
recovered it.
Yep.
Um,
One of them happened this year.
it's the who had the pick 6 in the garbage time.
He
Yes.
Do you
Oh,
remember his
Kyron
name?
Jones.
That
Kyron
is
Jones.
3. Who's
and
the 4th?
then
He also had one in garbage time. It wasn't this year, though.
Pop
There you go.
against UAB. In
Man, you guys are
2021.
pretty good. That's 4 for 4. That is really, really good on your Georgia defensive
You got one more?
trivia. No, I don't. That's the only one I had from here.
I like those.
Those are fun.
Those are fun games.
Those
I
are
like
fun. Shouts out to the Georgia SID department. I know whichever intern has to make these, thank you. And first of all, I don't know who you are. I don't know. I'm sure it changes every week for those guys and gals, whoever has to do this. But the last 2 weeks, man, I've actually read through them and gotten some decent nuggets from this right here. Kirby Smart is Georgia is 43-4 at home in the Kirby Smart era, including 12-1 against ranked opponents. I'm wondering who the one was.
Georgia Tech in 2016.
Were they ranked?
No, against the ranked opponent.
It's ranked opponents.
Okay, well, let's go over the home losses then.
12-1 against ranked opponents.
LSU
Tennessee in
2018?
Tennessee in 2016.
18 was on the road.
Dobbs no boot.
Oh,
Tennessee
road
was
home
ranked
games.
11th. Georgia was 25.
The Hail Mary play?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
20
that was it.
Because it was 2016
That's
Tennessee.
kind of a smug stat.
And all
I
four
guess.
home losses have happened within the first 4 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you
The
haven't
last home
you haven't
loss was
lost at home since I
2019
got
against
married.
South Carolina.
Yeah. Since your boy got
South
married.
Carolina, Tennessee 2016, Vanderbilt 2016.
That'll do it.
There's one more. I'll think of it.
There's not a ton of them.
No.
No, there's not.
All right, that'll do it for us tonight as well. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, rate, review on your way out. Hey, we've had a tremendous week on this network. All right, and we're only halfway done.
Tech,
We'll
South
see you tomorrow.
Carolina, Vanderbilt, Tennessee. I got it. All right.
Congrats.
better.
We'll see you tomorrow.